Welcome to our AITA. We're asking for the bare minimum of normal behavior at the office somehow turns into a heinous crime on par with setting a nursery on fire and stealing the company coffee. Go ahead and say in the comments whose side you're on, because this one starts with a weird coworker, passes through a useless HR department, and ends exactly the way everyone pretends not to expect, but can already smell coming like burnt wires. Our next Reddit post comes from user Throwwaterwork. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and I've worked at a marketing company for a little over a year. I'll call my coworker Celeste, who is 33. I know weird is a strong word, and I know the internet loves turning any female discomfort into a lack of empathy. So, let me explain up front. I didn't call Celeste weird because she likes old movies, wears vintage clothes, or eats soup for breakfast. I called Celeste weird because being around her felt like unwillingly participating in a documentary about stalking. When I first joined the company, Celeste was one of the first people to welcome me. She seemed shy, a little stiff, but polite. In those first few days, she asked too many questions. Like way too many. Not things like where are you from? Or how long was your commute? It was more like, do you sleep on your side or on your back? Is your mom still married to your dad? If someone wore your face, who in your family would notice first? I gave awkward little laughs because I assumed it was social anxiety. But it didn't stop. She started showing up everywhere. In the cafeteria, in the elevator, in the break room, in the parking lot. And not in a normal way, like to people who work on the same floor. It was like she materialized. I'd walk into the break room and she'd already be there stirring coffee without actually drinking it, just watching me come in. I'd go out for lunch and get a Teams message from her asking whether the restaurant on the corner had changed the Caesar salad dressing. I had never told her I was going there. She just knew. There was one week when things got especially bizarre. On Monday, I brought vanilla yogurt with granola. On Tuesday, Celeste brought the exact same yogurt. Same brand, same container, and even laughed while saying, I guess organized people always end up choosing the same things. On Wednesday, I wore a green cardigan I bought at a thrift store. On Friday, she showed up wearing one that was practically identical. Not similar. Identical. Even the top button was a little loose. She stopped at my desk and said, it looks better on me because my shoulders are straighter. Then she walked away. Just like that. As if that were a sentence an actual human being would say. I have a boyfriend, Ryan, and we've lived together for 2 years. I'm not one of those people who talks much about my love life at work. So my coworkers only knew the basics. One day, completely out of nowhere, Celeste asked if Ryan was still leaving his wet sneakers by the door. I froze. I asked how she knew his name. She pointed at a small framed photo on my desk that had aquarium with Ryan written on the back in pen. It was a birthday gift. The name wasn't visible from where she was standing. She would have had to physically pick up the frame and look at it. When I said that, she just replied, oh, maybe I read it when you stepped away to take a call. Like, excuse me. In what universe is that supposed to be reassuring? I mentioned it to the coworkers, and both of them gave me the classic line, oh, Celeste is kind of quirky. Quirky. That word should be retired. Most of the time it means this person is steps away from keeping your hair strands in an envelope. But nobody wants to deal with it. Things started escalating. Celeste began finishing my sentences in meetings. I'd start saying that a client needed a cleaner campaign, and she would finish the sentence with my exact wording. Not similar ideas. My exact words. She also started sending messages that were just 3 dots, or hi, or a picture of the empty hallway. One time she sent me a photo of my chair with the caption, it looks sad when you go out for lunch. Another time she sent me, don't wear blue tomorrow. I wore blue anyway. And she stared at me all day like I had ignored a nuclear warning. The creepiest moment up until then happened at the office Secret Santa. Celeste got me. She gave me a picture frame. Inside it was a photo of me, taken from far away in the parking lot, putting a shopping bag into my car. It wasn't a nice photo or a funny one. It was a stolen photo. I asked, right there in front of everyone, where it came from. She smiled and said, you look so happy, and didn't even know nobody was watching. Then came that delicious corporate party silence. The kind where everybody realizes the joke is over, but nobody wants to be the first to admit there might actually be a lunatic among them. I went to my manager after that. He listened to me with the expression of a man who wished he could dissolve on the spot. And in the end he said Celeste has social difficulties, that she admires confident women, and that maybe I was taking it all too personally. Too personally, of course. Because receiving a clandestine photo of yourself in a parking lot is exactly the kind of thing a mature woman should greet with gratitude and a basket of muffins. I tried to keep my distance. I removed the picture from my desk, started eating lunch at different times, and muted her messages. But that seemed to make things worse. She started showing up at my desk with ridiculous excuses, stapler, scissors, a question about fonts, a question about a shared folder, a question about a spreadsheet that wasn't even my team's, and she stood close. Close enough that I could smell her perfume before I heard her voice. A perfume that was so sweet, sickly, like an old doll locked in a trunk. The breaking point came last week during a campaign meeting with 8 people in the room. We were discussing a client that sells men's products. Someone said the brand needed to look less aggressive and more trustworthy. Out of nowhere, Celeste laughed and said, Hannah would agree. She makes Ryan trim his beard because she says he looks like a man who yells at waiters. The entire room looked at me. I had never said that at work. Never. Not even to my friends there. I only ever say things like that at home, to Ryan himself. I didn't think. I just turned to her and said, Celeste, for the love of God, can you stop being so weird? You watch me, mess with my things, know details about my life that I never told you, and take pictures of me in secret. This isn't cute, isn't quirky, it's bizarre. Leave me alone. She went pale, then red and started crying. She ran out of the room. Everybody stared at me like I had kicked a puppy on live television. My manager called me in afterward and said I had been cruel, that I could have used different words. That Celeste felt humiliated, and I understand that. I know the word weird was harsh, but honestly, I had spent months trying to be polite while this woman acted like I was some kind of craft project. Now HR has scheduled a meeting with me because Celeste says I attacked her personally and created a hostile work environment. A few people are on my side privately, but nobody wants to say that out loud in a formal meeting. Because courage in the workplace is a luxury item. My boyfriend thinks I should have spoken up sooner. My sister thinks I was rude, but understandably rude. And now I'm here wondering, was I the asshole for asking my coworker to stop being weird? Look, at first I was ready to give up a mild scolding over her choice of word. Because yes, weird is not ideal diplomatic language, not elegant. Not that smooth HR-approved vocabulary that sounds like it was written by an emotionally neutral blob of gelatin. But then we get to the secret parking lot photo, and that's it. The diplomacy train flies right off the tracks. The stolen photo killed any moral obligation to be delicate. In the comments, one person wrote, NTA. This isn't social awkwardness. This is stalking behavior. You need to document everything. Another person replied, YTA for the wording, NTA for the content. Calling her weird in front of the whole team was unnecessary. But honestly, I would have snapped way sooner. And a third person asked the obvious question, how did she know so much about Ryan? That's the most concerning part. The original poster replied, that's exactly what made me lose it. Most of the other stuff could maybe be explained by her snooping through my desk or overhearing conversations. But details about Ryan, especially recent comments, didn't make sense. He's never been to my office, never. Another comment said, have you checked your social media? Maybe she follows you from fake accounts. I replied, I checked. There were 3 accounts that viewed all my stories without following me. One of them disappeared after the meeting, farther down. Someone asked, have you ever noticed your desk being messed with? And Up said, yes. I thought I was imagining it. But a few times the picture frame had been moved, a lipstick I kept in my drawer showed up opened. And once my hand lotion smelled different, I stopped leaving any personal items there. Right, by that point, the story had already left the territory of annoying coworker and entered that delicious somewhere. You realize the protagonist maybe wasn't rude. Enough. Then the original author came back with an update. I spoke to HR. It was just as ridiculous as you'd imagine. First, the HR woman opened the meeting by saying the company values different forms of interpersonal expression, and I swear to God, for 1 second I thought I was about to be told that taking secret photos of coworkers in a parking lot was the love language of some Nordic subculture. I explained everything calmly. The photo, the messages, the mirroring, the comments about my life, the fact that she touched my belongings. The HR woman kind of froze when I mentioned the photo and asked to see it. I showed her. She made that face people make when they suddenly realize the inclusion handbook doesn't cover every possible case. The meeting was still happening when my manager walked in and asked me to wait outside. 20 minutes later, he came back looking awful and asked if I had ever seen a brown notebook on Celeste's desk. I said no. Apparently, while HR was talking to me, one of the analysts went to grab a charger from the shared counter near Celeste's desk, bumped into a folder, and it fell. Inside were a bunch of printed pages and notes about me. I saw part of the material later, because unfortunately my day was still capable of getting worse. There were printed photos of me from Instagram, old Facebook profile photos, a screenshot of a map to my condo, notes about my favorite coffee order, descriptions of clothes I wore on specific days, the times I usually arrived, the make and model of my car, my parents' names, Ryan's birthday, an entire page titled Things She Tolerates in Him. I am not making this up. It had subcategories: mood, food, appearance, routine. I wanted to rinse my brain with chlorine. But that wasn't even the worst part. On several pages, the same phrase kept appearing in different versions. He lies to both of us. She doesn't know. She still hasn't realized. And on one sheet there was just an address written down for 18 Cedar Street. When they confronted Celeste, she snapped. She said it was all emotional research, that I didn't understand, that she only wanted clarity. Then she asked for her phone back because it involved another person. She was immediately suspended and sent home. HR is now pretending they always took me seriously, which is almost cute. My manager apologized. 2 coworkers came to hug me. One of them literally said, I thought she was just a little vintage, of course. Just an old-timey aesthetic, aside from the criminal dossier. When I got home, I found Ryan on the couch. I told him everything. He got weird when I mentioned the Cedar Street address. Not sad. Not shocked. Weird. That kind of stillness that isn't peace, it's calculation. I asked if he knew the address. He said no. I asked again. He said it sounded familiar. Then his phone buzzed on the table. It was a text from an unknown number. It only said, does she know yet, or are you going to lie one more time? I saw the message. He tried to grab the phone. I got it first. The message history had been deleted. There were archived chats. There were recently deleted photos. I couldn't recover everything right away, but I recovered enough. Ryan knew Celeste. Knew her well, very well. They had been having an affair for 11 months. Yes, 11 months. Apparently they met at a happy hour hosted by another company last year. He never told me about her. To Celeste, he said he was stuck in a dead relationship. To me, he said he was working late or going out with a friend from college, whose name I now kinda want tattooed on his forehead just to humiliate him. From what I've managed to piece together so far, Celeste found out where I worked months ago. Probably because Ryan slipped up or showed her something of mine. When she realized I was me, she didn't dump him, didn't tell me, didn't make any decision remotely resembling basic sanity. No, she decided to study me. Because, according to some of her messages, she wanted to understand what I had that she didn't. So, she started copying me. My clothes, my food, my way of speaking, my routine. That was it. It wasn't my imagination. It was worse. It was an affair partner doing market research. Ryan said he had tried to end things with her several times, but she threatened to tell me everything. I asked why. Then, he hadn't told me himself. He went quiet, because cowardly men always love the truth as long as it destroys someone else first. I told him to leave. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't deliver one of those cinematic speeches people give when they still have enough energy to turn humiliation into performance. I just pointed at the door and told him to go before I forgot I still have a clean record. So no, I don't think I was the asshole for calling Celeste weird anymore. Maybe I was just imprecise. The technical term might be investigative mistress with stalking tendencies and zero healthy hobbies. My God, sweet heavens. This story went from weird co-worker straight into love triangle written by someone who absolutely hates peace. And notice something. Was Celeste crazy? Yes, completely. No appeal. No review. No redemption arc. But Ryan was the kind of man who sets the kitchen on fire and then asks who left the gas on. In the comments, someone wrote, "NTA, you called her weird. I would have called her psychotic and still been generous." Another person said, "Ryan is still the biggest villain. Celeste is disturbing, but he fed the obsession." Op replied, "She scared me. He disgusted me." Under that, someone asked, "Are you going to report this formally?" Police, restraining order. And Op replied, "The company is already involved legal because she had maps of my condo. I'm also changing the locks. And yes, I already warned the front desk. Very sensible. Very adult. Very different from my advice, which would have been to change the locks, the Wi-Fi password, the car, the tax ID, and, if possible, your skin. Then came the final update. Final update. Because I would honestly love to never think about this again after today. The company fired Celeste. Not just because of the dossier, but because they discovered she used another co-worker's badge to enter the office on a Sunday. Her explanation was that she wanted to confirm a suspicion. The suspicion was the size of the ring I wear, because she found a discarded draft of a wedding budget in the trash and wanted to know whether Ryan had proposed to me before or after sleeping with her. I wish I were making this up, but unfortunately God seems to dislike me just a little. I also found out that the address on Cedar Street was an extended stay apartment, rented in Ryan's name. It wasn't a hotel. It wasn't an occasional airbnb. It was an apartment. The little improv artist was using money we had been saving for the wedding to pay for that place. Our fund for flowers, catering, and music was financing his emotional roach nest, and it gets better. Or worse, depends on your appetite for chaos. Celeste didn't just want to copy me. She wanted to replace me. There were messages where Ryan said things like, "You understand my humor better than she does. And I like it when you wear your hair that way." He compared the two of us constantly. Everything. Clothes, bodies, reactions, food, sex. She, in turn, became some cursed scientist of my existence. In one message she said, "I think I finally got the way she crosses her legs right." I almost threw up when I read that. Not because I'm vain, but because finding out your body language became field research for a corporate affair partner is a very specific and deeply nauseating experience. Ryan sent me more than 40 messages, then emails, then flowers. I sent everything back, including the flowers. I asked the florist to attach the original card with a postscript from me, delivered to Cedar Street. It should match the mold. That was my mature moment. As for the company, several people came to apologize for treating it like I was exaggerating. One of them admitted that Celeste had done something similar to another woman years ago. But because that woman quit, it never really turned into anything. That made me furious. Because it's always like that. The uncomfortable woman leaves, the company calls it a misunderstanding. And the weirdness keeps clocking in over time. Now for the part that really nailed the coffin shut. Last night, the police went to the Cedar Street apartment because Celeste hadn't answered anyone for hours. And the doorman heard glass breaking inside. She was physically okay, but the apartment was full of my things. Not my actual belongings, but my patterns. A green cardigan, the same yogurt brand I buy. A perfume similar to mine. An empty picture frame just like the one from my desk. Even a notepad with my handwriting imitated. You know those movies where the villain has a giant wall full of evidence, and the police discover it at the end? That, except with less glamour and more cheap candle smell. I changed all my passwords, stayed away from my apartment for a few days, and I'm talking to a lawyer about the wedding money and some other expenses. Ryan is officially single now, without a fiancé. without a mistress, without dignity, and hopefully without a comfortable mattress either. Because I kept the better one. So I guess that's the final answer. No, I was not the asshole for asking my coworker to stop being weird. I was just the first person in the entire office to correctly describe the problem. Maybe if someone had done that earlier, I wouldn't have uncovered an affair, a second apartment, and in the single most depressing version of female comparison imaginable. If anyone reading this feels like they might be overreacting about someone at work, maybe you're not. Sometimes your body notices danger before office politics do. And honestly, if I could go back in time, I would have said less please and more stay away from me. Thank you to everyone who told me to document everything. You were right. And to the people who said I should have been gentler, well, I hope your Secret Santa gives you a candid photo of yourself leaving a pharmacy. Maybe that'll help your empathy develop. Look, at first I honestly thought it might have been too harsh. But after the dossier, the research mistress situation, the secret apartment funded with wedding money, and the full-blown museum built around OP's personality, honestly, weird was the most polite word spoken in this entire story. Celeste wasn't just weird. She was a doctoral dissertation on badly directed obsession. And Ryan, who managed to cheat, manipulate to women, and use the wedding budget to finance his little house of lies, is the kind of man who would make a cockroach ask for distance on hygienic grounds. So no, Op was not the asshole. At most, she was the only person in that entire company who looked at a fire and had the nerve to say, I think this place might be burning, and now I want your opinion. At what point would you have snapped? At the parking lot photo, the comment about Ryan, the brown notebook, or the Cedar Street apartment paid for with wedding money?